So we might as well get started. I'm sorry I'm a little late. I'm 2 minutes late. Anyway, I just want to read our opening prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Right.
Amen. Well, today we're going. I don't think the rabbi is going to be here, but we'll see if he surprises us or Rabbi Mary. Excuse me, David. I think you said something.
Yeah, I said next week we have a Saturday morning service apparently.
Right. It's next week that there's no Torah study.
Right, but what I wanted to ask is, would you like the quotation?
Yes, please. Please.
Okay, today's quotation has to do with Halley's Comet, and I think all of us saw it when it was last year in 1986. But this quotation is from my very favorite book, Starlight Nights: The Adventures of a Stargazer by Leslie Peltier. And he writes, within historic times, 28 visits by Halley's Comet, once every 76 years, have been recorded. On an early trip, it witnessed the defeat of Attila's Huns in AD 451. It arrived in time to preside over the Norman conquest in 1066. In the year 1456, the menacing appearance of the comet so alarmed Pope Calixtus that he decreed several days of prayer and established the midday Angelus. With a great clanging of bells, he then besought the comet to visit its wrath solely on the invading Turks. In 1607, it was watched by both Shakespeare and Kepler, and I like to think that it was also seen by Captain John Smith and Pocahontas in the frontier skies of Jamestown. On his following trip around in 1682, the comet was observed by Halley himself, who probed into its periodic past and bequeathed to it an honored name that it can bear with pride throughout the solar system. By 1835, when it returns, affairs of Earth have speeded up. Many a canal boat traveler looking down could see the comet glowing on the surface of his highway. Humanity himself had taken to the skies when the comet appeared in 1910, where he was making fledgling flights of perhaps 100 miles. In 1986, our historic visitor was visiting in turn. During that year, several spacecraft from the Earth held a rendezvous with Halley's Comet out in space. Who would venture to foretell the wonders and achievements which the comet will witness in that distant year of 2062? Or will humanity itself prove periodic? Will the Huns be back again? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Well, we are going to start on Deuteronomy 14:1. Those of you who have plowed, it's page 1437.
Okay, I'll try to do this.
Okay.
14:1. And
Okay.
how far should I do this?
Well, that's what I want to do. Why don't you read uh, uh, verse 1 through verse 8, and then we'll go back and we'll unpack it.
Okay. You are children of the Lord your God. You shall not gash yourselves or shave the front of your heads because of the dead. For you are a people consecrated to the Lord your God. The Lord your God chose you from among all the other peoples on earth to be his treasured people. You shall not eat anything abhorrent. These are animals that you may eat: the ox, sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roebuck, the wild goat, the ibex, the antelope, the mountain sheep, and other animals that have true hooves which are cleft, and 2 brings up the cud, such as you may eat. But the following, which you do bring up the cud, or have true hooves, which are cleft through, you may not eat the camel, the hare, the daemon, for although they bring up cud, they have no true hooves. They are unclean for you. Also, the swine, for all, for although it has true hooves, it does not bring up the cud. It is unclean for you. You shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their carcasses.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. You're very welcome.
Well, let's first do verses 1 and 2, and any comments about that?
Well, it's very specific. The one thing that I get out of it's so specific that how
Well,
they how God um, decided on this is for me it's some sort of a mystery.
okay. One of the things that uh, it talks about the gashing and shaving. One of the things that some of this uh, were customs in mourning rites. Not morning, like good morning, everyone. It's in mourning, Mourn. Okay, so it is part of ritualistic behavior in the death of people. Okay, in different, so in other words, a family would do things and like that. Uh, we're allowed to wear I forget the Hebrew term for it, but that little black shred of cloth that symbolizes the death of someone. You don't rend but you were allowed at one time to rend your clothing, and this substitutes for that. But some people did that, and the fear there may have been that you would start to worship the dead, that it may remind you so much of the deceased that you would then start worshiping death, and we're supposed to focus on life. Maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know for sure. This is where the rabbis would be a little helpful in that. Uh,
uh, I,
Cloud
I
Cloud addresses it to some extent that way.
yeah, I have 2 comments. Sidebar
Sure,
comments, Marty. Uh,
sure, go
if you
ahead.
in regards to the piece of black cloth,
Yes.
if you see today when there is a death of a police officer,
Mm-hmm.
the officers that are attending this funeral, you'll notice that they put a black band around their badges.
Yes.
If you haven't noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's one of the things they've taken from the Jewish religion of the Torah.
They may have it. A lot of cultures sort of copy each other because it has, it's meaningful. But I think you're right, Michael, with regard to that.
And there's another thing. If you have ever, if any of us have ever attended a a, uh, the what do you call it? Orthodox funeral, a Jewish Orthodox funeral. There is no shaking of hands. They do not. They're not supposed to, and they usually do not. This is an Orthodox traditional uh, 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 funeral.
Okay.
There is no.
Is there a reason for that, Michael?
I would think. I don't know. No one's told me. I've never asked about that, but I would assume that these when you shake hands with somebody, it's a greeting. Nice to see you. Happy to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. It displays some form of happy to be with you at this time. And you do not you meet people maybe you haven't seen for a long time, but you don't really want to meet them under these circumstances.
Okay.
See? And so that's the way I would view that, or something to that effect. That
Okay.
it's not a happy the circumstances in which I'm seeing you is not a happy one.
Okay. Uh, I could come up with another reason.
Yeah.
Okay. One, there are several things we do at a funeral that that we don't let a Kohen, if in the Orthodoxy, a Kohen would not enter the graveyard, okay, would not go up to the burial and things like that. They'd be off to the side. Um, the And after the service, there's another ritual for everyone to wash their hands. Okay. And the thought it crossed my mind when you were discussing this, Michael. Could this also be related to, we're told not even if you touch a dead body, okay, you're supposed to go to a mikveh. And in the Orthodoxy, they would do that because you have to be perfectly clean. Uh, Maybe some people don't shake hands because they don't know if the other person has accidentally touched the deceased.
Yeah.
And so as a result, by that person may not be clean. So that may be another reason for that. I don't know. This is where, an Orthodox rabbi would be helpful to let us know. Yes, Marianne.
I have a question. I can understand, like the hygiene and the health concerns of touching the dead body, but could it also be on a spiritual level?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm very funny about touching people. I am not a toucher, and I don't like being touched for that reason. That we communicate energy on top of all the health issues involved, that would be involved in this. Can it also be like on a spiritual level, or
There is
I know what I mean. I
when,
don't know if I'm making myself clear.
whether it is superstition from Eastern Europe or not. One of the things is that bad things can be transmitted. Okay, and some of the ceremonies are designed around the same reason.
Okay.
It's a more spiritual side, to so that nothing evil comes your way or goes on to other people. Uh,
What about the transfer of goodness or
so it's
compassion or
and the
love
goodness
in
can
that
be through
situation?
your expression of speaking and like that. But touching, they would probably sort of frown on because they link it basically with worshiping the dead. as part all of these things. And by the way, one of the things, there's a prescribed length of time for wearing a black ribbon, and a period of mourning, at the end of which time, at the end of a year, you're supposed to stop your mourning. You have another ceremony that signals that. That's the unveiling. And
Uh,
that's the end of the mourning period. It doesn't mean you can't remember the person, but you don't do all of the things to mourn. And they give you a year to get over everything and then enter back into society so that you can contribute again.
yeah, what we're discussing right now is a demonstration of
Yeah,
is a demonstration of how important death, the death of a person, is very very critical in the
sure.
Jewish religion. It's handled with the uh, in a very very sacred way, and to demonstrate the how important I think a human life is.
Hmm.
And the first 30 days, and you're not permitted in for the first 30 days in the Orthodox Jewish religion to visit the gravesite. You can't go for 30 days. I believe that's it. And then, as you say, a year later, it finalizes, and you go back to living a normal life. But it's very, very, all of these things just demonstrate how critical a death is handled in the Jewish religion.
Yes. Good point, Michael. Uh, the other thing is that Plout discusses that some of this were the rituals of the Canaanites. There's some who say that those were the rituals of the Canaanites themselves. So I think that um, uh, what it's like an admonition: just don't copy these things because you may be led astray. That's all that I could come up with. But I think it's worthwhile discussing these. And maybe when we have the rabbi back, we can remember to go back to this and ask those questions that we just do not have the information. I could not find that anywhere. Uh, I'm sure there are books that are, that covered this, the rituals in greater depth.
I have a book called The Jewish Book of Why,
All
and
right. I
second,
remember that book, yes.
the second Jewish Book of Why, and those books put an enormous amount of space into describing the Jewish rituals for the dead. And my understanding is, but after the 30 days where one is prohibited from visiting a gravesite, one can then visit the gravesite as often as one wants, which is what I think. But maybe I should check on it.
Well, you can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people, remember someone so close to them that this is a way they feel they can still communicate, and sometimes you're able to solve an issue that was on your mind at the time or something like that. Uh, it, you know, it, and I really don't know the exact answers to this, and this is where I think that it would be reasonable to, when the rabbi gets back, that we can go over that. Uh, and then, but yeah, David, you know, maybe it's for us to focus on the not all this suffering that someone goes through, but on the good things that they contributed to our lives.
Hmm.
Because I'll call on you in a second, Marianne. Because if you think about it, if you focus only on that, on the suffering, you're not going to give yourself the opportunity to ever come away from that and move and to honor the person. That's why a celebration of life is often done, because you focus on the things that they did, the characteristics of the person, things like that, as opposed to the other side of the person.
Yeah.
And certainly it gets your mind. They're designed to get your mind away for the grieving, the suffering, and all of that. And maybe that's a good thing for people. And then maybe it's better to honor them by doing, by you do it in their honor. Okay. So in other words, it's an uplifting experience rather than a down experience. Okay. Yes,
Thank you,
Marianne.
Marty. I'm glad to hear you have said that.
Okay.
And, I think that
Thank you.
one of the blessings with hospice was, I'm thinking about all the different people, and each person, whether they had their own rituals for, even as the person was in the end stage of life, helping them move on, pass forward, and you had said it a week or two ago about the Torah and the AA program. I based all of my hospice counseling on the AA program. What I noticed was that the people who could really absorb that, their pain levels decreased, they were less fearful,
That's
they
right.
were happier, the family was happier. As my father died, the hospice that we had then said to me, "This is the best death I've ever been to." And I thought, I'm glad to hear that. That's exactly what I wanted. Because thankfully, these other people, through their loss, had taught me a lot of things about handling this.
That's right.
I think that death and birth, that they're equally beautiful.
Sure. No, I think that these are concepts that when people are in our age group, things happen,
Mhm.
and it's nice to look back, but then you start. A lot of people also uh, look back on their parents, their grandparents, and they start talking about certain qualities, certain values that they got from them. And in my dad's case, he was an abused child, but he turned his entire life around. Okay, he never did any abuse to me or my sister. I know that's bad English. David would give me an F. It should have been my sister or I. but but seriously, he did a 180-degree turn. And he used the bad experiences that he suffered to grow from. And that's another example, though, and I admire him for that. I think that was a tremendous achievement, a personal achievement on his part. And, uh, so as you look at things, we have opportunities. You know what I mean? I can remember certain grandparents, you know, favorably for certain things that they did, even though they didn't treat my dad wrong, correctly. Uh, but uh, but and some of them were very important to commute to the communities and like that. But you have to be able to work that out in some way, and by focusing on the good things, it softens the blow. You know. So anyway, any other discussion? Michael probably had to step away to take some medication for his eyes. The So any comments now about this is returning to kashrut and any comments about this? By the way, some of the animals mentioned here, Roebuck has nothing to do with Sears and Roebuck. Okay, so I'll start off with that. But does anyone know what a daemon is? Or daemon? I'm not sure how you pronounce the word, but anybody know what that is?
No, I don't.
It's a it's a type of hyrax. Oops. These are gopher-like or marmot-like animals. Okay. They are related. I'm glad you're all sitting down. To the elephant. Genetically, they're related to the elephant. Go figure. And they're beautiful, cute little creatures. I have some photographs I took of them when we were in Africa years and years ago, and I was amazed and a totally different perspective on things. But I just found that of interest. I had to look it up because I didn't know what that was. And they said a shy in Plout, it says it is a shy small animal of the Hyrax family. Well, that told me everything but you have to know that the Hyrax is also related to the elephant. And that is a weird thing. Any other comments? We've had this discussion before. Does anyone else want to talk about, the different types of meat and things like that?
Yeah, I think for me, this is another thing, brings me another step closer to God. When you think about all of nature, there's the food chain. We have different teeth, we have different mouth, we have different digestive systems, yet we're all provided with exactly what we need.
Mm-hmm.
That it's God's mastery over every single thing, right down to what we eat.
We're supposed to be uh, servants of God, okay? And some people would say the children of God, okay? Or everybody. And what some people have said, this is a way of not just keeping your mind holy, but also your body holy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure
Some
you
people,
know.
and the word comes up in what we've read in years past, and also now, the word pure is going to come up. And that way, because you're also recognizing your status with God and your connection with God, as Marianne is mentioning. And so you do your best to do the things that are going to 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 keep you in a purer form. So we could say, so what's pure? Okay. Is it just to be clean in the face of God? Well, we're told to wash. We're going to we'll discuss a little of that coming up if we do today, but we've discussed it in the past. The mikveh and things like that. Yes, David.
This wonderful thing that you are teaching and telling us about right now, the laws of kashrut, is so important that we discuss this. But I need to take a break and tell you a little wonderful line from Fiddler on the Roof when Tevye says, "You made us the chosen people. For once, could you please choose somebody?"
Because it's so hard. It's so hard to do. Uh, People keep trying, in each in his own way. And but it becomes a difficult task. Let's put it that way.
I would like to add that when my grandmother and my mom and I watched the stage production of Fiddler, they
Uh-huh.
got to that line, the entire audience just fell out of their chairs in laughter.
Of
And I'd
course.
like to think that it gives me some comfort to think that God himself enjoyed the joke and he probably laughed with us.
When we can't answer certain things, he probably is rolling in with laughter. Yes, I'll give it to them. Yes, Michael.
Uh, I thought about this for some time, and it's kind of comical. Um, in reference to a pig, people say negative things to other people concerning a pig. For example, you
Hmm.
eat like a pig,
Sure.
you look like a pig, and a few other things that I'm not
Yeah,
going
it's,
to get
it's
into.
derogatory. Yes.
Yeah, derogatory, but yet these people eat the meat of a pig. They eat pig.
Hmm.
And so both of them, both, they don't jive really, but it's, if you're going to eat the pig, why would you tell somebody you look like a pig if you're willing to eat it?
That's
It's
that's the
just,
point.
Now remember, re, I got you. I got you. So when we think of this, what is it about the pig? Why the chastisement? Do not eat the pig. Do not eat, certain animals. And we're going to have this and think about this same discussion when we talk about the fish and the birds. Okay?
Okay, this is a
They
kind
all
of
have
a,
something in common. Yes, go ahead.
I have a
Go ahead,
doctor
Marianne.
question. Here you go. As we eat, okay, these different animals, are we also then eating any diseases or stuff that we would then bring into our? I can't imagine how these people could grow all this stuff, cook all this stuff. This is overwhelming to me. Do we then bring in those, like, the only thing I could think of was pork is trichinosis? Do we bring those
Later on,
diseases into the body as
later
well?
on during rabbinic times, they started to learn about certain diseases like trichinosis. And they knew that you had to be careful that there were certain types of illnesses associated with this. But that's separate from the time within which this was written.
Okay.
Okay. But I mean, there's so many different things you can get, whether they're plants or animals or things, different types of diseases. So I don't know the exact answer to that.
I've been thinking about that during the week, that however they did it, they may not have had the understanding, but they certainly knew what they were talking about.
But uh, slop is the term that we use for the feed for the pigs. Okay. That's garbage.
Oh,
Okay. And it includes stuff that you are not supposed to eat. Hmm. So maybe it was an attempt to say that since the pigs wallowed in all the mud and they ate the slop and all this stuff, their bodies were not as clean as some of the other animals. When you look at a pig in the wild, yeah, they don't look as clean as the
Gazelle.
uh, like a deer or some other animal. But we're also admonished that we can't, and this is going to come up. I can discuss it now. Since um, you can't eat any animal that thrives on eating other animals. So you don't eat lions, tigers, jaguars, and anything like that. And there are a few insects that eat only plants, and then there are those that eat uh, the detritus. They're in the slop. They're the flies and other things. No, you're not supposed to eat those. So maybe it had something to do. I mentioned this before. We have to think why whenever we see different things in Torah, that we have to try to link them. Why do we're talking about uh, death? We're talking about disfigurement of your skin. We're talking uh, of we've been told about animals with cud because they regurgitate, but they also that certain ones that have that they're a- an animal that has both a cloven hoof and regurgitates cud. Certain ones are okay, and others are not because one is cloven all the way through, like a camel, but a deer is okay. All right, so there are variations on the theme, and this is trying to do things. I'm sure to what we're discussing today. I am sure this was a discussion in years past too, and maybe it was meant to be so difficult to know that you decided not to eat the meat after all. I don't know. I'm just tossing that out. Maybe it was better to remain a vegetarian if you couldn't figure it out for yourself, or the rabbis couldn't figure it out.
Marty,
Yes,
I have a
David.
question regarding this kashrut discussion.
Sure.
When I was younger, and you're a physician, you may be able to respond to this very well, but when I was younger, I was taught that the kosher laws are actually medically sound because even though
Mhm.
they were announced so many thousands of years ago, they were very careful and they actually forbid us from eating things that are not healthy.
Right. No, you are correct. But these are coming before science got
Yeah.
to know, understand everything. So this was a practice, and it sort of got us in trouble. It sort of got us in trouble. So when other people got sick and we stayed well, they turned it around and said, well, it was a curse we had put upon them as a people, and they would take it out on us. You know, as part of anti-Semitism, I guess. It dovetails into that discussion. But I don't want to go there. That'll take up a lot of time. So all I can say is that you see the very last part of verse 8, you should not touch their carcasses. So maybe it has to deal with the death and dying, and that's how all of these are tied together. the kashrut plus the you know, what you shouldn't do. And the same thing happens if you come up with to a dead animal. You're not supposed to eat it. You're not supposed to touch it. And if you happen to have to do it, then you have to, there's a ritual bath that you have to undertake. And the same thing with a dead person. And then we're going to see even more things. Yes. Yes. Who started to talk? I just was looking down. I didn't see who wanted to say something. Michael, did you want to add something?
Yeah,
Or
well, I was thinking of what
okay, go ahead.
Mary Ann originally said uh, was very was made a lot of sense to me. It's spiritual, or there's a spirituality there
Yeah,
about touching death. You
right.
know, whether it's a human being or a dead animal. It's about touching death. Uh, there's something spiritual going on there. That's what I make. That makes very good sense to me.
Yeah. So, all I can say is what we've gone through here is a similar discussion that also appears in Talmud. Okay, because there's nothing new under the sun. So you have all the pluses and minuses, all the different twists and turns discussed, different opinions, and by people far more scholarly than most of us could ever be. And
Yeah, well, the rabbis would definitely be very valuable for this discussion.
yes, they would be. And Uh, I think Rabbi Mary said something about that she was going to be on a cruise, a rabbi on a cruise or something like that. I think that's what she had said uh, a month or so ago. So let's turn to the birds. Oh, not Alfred Hitchcock style.
No.
So, David, would you care to read?
I would love to read.
Okay, so verses 9
Before
all
before I
the way
begin,
through to the end of 21.
okay, before I begin,
Yes.
I just wanted to thank you for saying there is nothing new under the sun, which I believe is a phrase from Ecclesiastes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you.
These you may eat of all that are in the waters, because I enjoy fish. Whatsoever hath fins and scales you may eat, and whatsoever does not hath not fins and scales, ye shall not eat. It is unclean unto you. Of all clean birds ye may eat, but these are they of which ye shall not eat: the great vulture, and the bearded vulture, and the osprey, and the glede, and the falcon, and the kite after its kinds, and every raven after its kinds, nevermore, and the ostrich, and the nighthawk, and the seamew, and the hawk after its kinds, the little owl, and the great owl, and the horned owl, and the pelican, and the carrion vulture, and the cormorant, and the stork, and the heron after its kinds, and the hoopoe, and the bat. It's quite a listing. And all winged swarming things that are unclean unto you, these shall not be eaten.
Okay. You may eat only clean winged creatures. Right? So, uh, a hoopoe is a type of bird. It's found in the Middle East and Africa, a little bit in Asia. Well, the Middle East is in Asia too, and in Eastern Europe. So it's almost like a woodpecker, very colorful bird, and I do not know what it eats. I did not. I just did a cursory look at this, but uh, it may be a type of bird that eats insects or other living things and things like that. I think if they were here in the United States, they would also include um, uh, the roadrunner for the same reason. Okay, so uh, you know, there are different types of birds that do that. However, in modern times, and since the 18th century on, when we really looked at uh, uh, the biology of different animals and like that, we find that even things that are on the list that they approved, well, they did eat bugs, they did eat worms, they did eat, other things. Rabbits not only eat plants, they eat bugs too, crawly things. So maybe they would rethink certain things. So that's all I'm going to say there. But go ahead, Marion, please.
Aren't all of these similar to the animals that they just talked about in that they're predatory animals?
Yes, yes,
They're kill well, part of the food chain, but they're
that's right.
killing something or eating rotten, decaying
Yes,
stuff.
the
So
things
that's
we
not
are
to
warned.
bring that sickness into
That
your own
is right.
self.
But it's also we're warned to not do it ourselves.
But
And so this would be they do it, but we're not supposed to do it. We're not supposed to touch or eat anything dead. And because we're supposed to be pure in our behavior, not only in our behavior, but also our body and our mind and things like that. Because we are interacting with God.
And also, I think you may um, consider the fact that we're all made in the image of God, and the reason why that is important is we're God, we're all God-like, and God is pure, God is perfect, and we should mimic that thought
Mm-hmm.
to try to become, because we are not perfect, and God knows that, I'm sure, but we strive in our daily lives to be like God. And so, therefore, don't touch anything dead,
Yeah.
because spiritually, this will flaw, create a flaw in us. And that's just uh, an idea that I have.
I kind of agree with what Michael's saying.
Yes.
If the body
Yes.
is a temple for God to reside in, you wouldn't go into a temple, not even a mosque or a church or anything, and start throwing garbage and smearing feces all over the walls. You would respect what that represents. And in eating clean, it's respecting that essence in us.
And that's very true. So it's the same discussion we had with the mammals, eating mammals, but it holds for certain fish. And a lot of the fish that do not have scales, okay, they eat, they are predators, okay? They don't have, and they're looking at like the sharks and things like that, okay? Swordfish,
What,
things of that nature that are predatory. Yes.
why are like shrimp, um, lobster. Why are they also forbidden? I mean, I can
Bottom
almost see
dwell,
the
bottom
lobster as
dwellers.
a bottom feeder.
Okay, they're the pigs of the ocean.
There
And the
was,
shrimp?
yeah, they're bottom feeders.
Think of them as the
What?
pigs of the ocean.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
They're- that's a oversimplification, probably.
No, it's true. Yeah.
So it's I think that if we look at things of that nature, clams and like that, oysters, they all of those things that are bottom dwellers. Look, we know from you run a risk of getting sick if you eat raw seafood. But and maybe they had an inkling of that. We have no way of knowing. We do not know anything about that, but we do know that that they are that at that time they were unclean. They were in the mud, you know, at the bottom of the ocean.
For those of us that come from New York, would that be like eating fish out of the Hudson River? Ugh.
Depends on how high up on the Hudson you want to go. In New York, no. Oh, golly, good one. But of interest, over time, other birds have been allowed. We're allowed to eat them according to Plout. Uh, these are mentioned, and what's interesting, he points out that they considered certain birds which had talons, a claw, and a quote detachable stomach lining. Okay, and the list of birds nowadays includes chicken, goose, duck, turkey, various pigeons. And other birds, though not prohibited by the Bible, have generally been disallowed by common practice and rabbinic rulings. However, some people have allowed the house sparrow. Depends which group you're with. The house sparrow, the finch, house finch. Okay, go figure. That's okay. So it's an interesting commentary that depending where you are in the world, we discussed this when we discussed the foods at the ritual foods served at Passover time, at Purim, and things like that. They vary even between Sephardic cultures and Ashkenazi cultures. So, so depending on what grows or lives in a particular part of the world, they have to make special rulings. Any other question? Oh, by the way, bat is included because at that time, excuse me, at that time, they felt that the bat was a bird. Historically, they didn't know a bat was a mammal for a long, long time. So that's why it's included with the bird. Any other question? Okay, verse 21, just by itself. David?
Okay, here we go. You shall not eat anything that dieth of itself. Thou mayst give it unto the stranger that is within my gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayst sell it unto a foreigner, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk.
Okay. There's a lot in this one verse. Okay. So we've already discussed an animal dying a natural death, but it was okay to give it to a stranger to eat. Why?
You were trying to poison them?
Excuse me?
I'm being facetious. You were trying to poison them?
No, because this special ruling of kashrut was for the Israelites, not for everyone.
Right, right.
And obviously, other people, if the animal had recently died, it may still be okay to eat portions of it. And maybe that's why it was still okay. Personally, I wouldn't sell it. I wouldn't even offer it. But um, uh, you know, it raises an eyebrow. You know, why would it be okay to do that? But a foreigner, a ger, okay, was not part of the clan. It was totally separate from the Israelite. You would interact with them only periodically. They were not living within your community. That's what it means here. Somebody who's not in your community or of your community. And so you had
Eating
the people that were living in your community and were
stranger in your
they were accepted as neighbors, and they were following the rules and regulations of your community, but they were not, if you will, an Israelite, but uh, they they still had to follow the same rules, and if they were doing that, they fell under the same laws. But a total stranger from somewhere else, no, that you didn't have to worry about it so much.
Marty, I don't understand the part about you should not boil a kid in its mother's milk.
That's our next. What don't you understand?
I don't understand any of that
Okay.
at all. The reason why.
Well, this has led to the discussion, the uh, the discussion of in since this is dealing with kashrut, you don't eat meat and
Oh,
milk
milk. Milk.
simultaneously. Any dairy and
right.
meat products.
Okay.
It's okay to eat them at different times, but not together.
I think it's 6 hours.
What
Is the
I
way
don't,
yeah,
yeah,
the Orthodox, I believe it's the period of 6 hours.
okay.
I think so. But
However, however, we have another example of this. Does it mean that it doesn't, could it also refer to the suffering that a female goat would be going through if it saw its kid being boiled? We have the same admonition with eggs. And we had a similar discussion. So is that another possible reason for it? Not just separating the two, but it, is it to remind us that we're not supposed to do things, to other creatures as well? That may be emotional, of an emotional nature, that we would say is cruelty.
Um, Marty,
Yes. Oh,
it's
hi.
Susan.
Yes, Susan. Hi.
I'm in bed.
Oh, okay.
Anyways,
Are
I
you
wanted.
okay? Are you
Yeah,
okay?
I'm okay.
All
I
right. Okay.
just a little lazy this morning.
All right. Well, that's all right.
I somewhere along the way, I read that this was a pagan practice. Um,
Okay.
and I think um, since we don't know what the we have a general idea of what some things uh, pagans did, but not all of them. And I think this is one of those things that has fallen through the cracks in knowledge, which would have meant something to the Israelites back then because they were certainly much more aware of pagan practices than we are today.
Yes. By the way, Rabbi Plaut offers that as another discussion. Yes, you are very correct. There is there is some known practice in that way. I agree with you, and thank you for mentioning that as well. Uh, but I offered this other. It's sad, but this is something, and there are other things that we're told to do, and I forget the term that the rabbi uses. There's a specific term that there is when there is no answer for it in Torah, and it's a word that he's brought up before, and I apologize for forgetting. But the, there are certain things in Torah that there's no good explanation for, but it has been interpreted in a certain way. Okay, and I'll read that. You shall not boil. This prohibition occurs at other times in the Torah and is exactly in the same formulation. The purpose of the law is not clear. It probably was to counteract certain idolatrous practices. Thank you, Suzanne. The rabbinic Judaism developed the command into a cornerstone of dietary law and saw it as a prohibition of eating milk and meat products together. However, the meaning of this is entirely extraneous to the text. Okay, that it does not, that this rabbinic interpretation, there are other ways of looking at this. Nobody can really say that that's exactly what it meant. But we did, but that entered into our culture, and there's nothing wrong, but this was the text to make that regulation. Okay, let's see. Marianne, would you care to read verse 22 through the end of 26?
Okay. You shall set aside every year a tenth part of all the yield of your sowing that is brought from the field. You shall consume the tithes of your new grain and wine and oil, and the firstlings of your herds and flocks, in the presence of the Lord your God, in a place where he will choose to establish his name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God forever. Should the distance be too great for you, you should be unable to transport them, because the place where the Lord your God has chosen to establish his name is far from you, and because the Lord your God has blessed you. You may convert them into money, wrap up the money, and take it with you to the place where the Lord your God has chosen, and spend the money
It's a run-on sentence again.
on anything you want. Cattle, sheep, wine, or other intoxicants, or anything you may desire. and you shall feast there in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice with your household. That's the end of 26, I think.
Any comments about this?
Yeah, I have, this is a little confusing. It
Go
said,
ahead.
my understanding was that you should give to God the first of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As I'm reading this, it sounds like you should keep it for yourself to use. And if you can't offer it to God, then get the money and go have a party. That's how I'm seeing this. And I don't think I'm understanding this correctly at all.
Okay. Any other questions before I'm going to do it because there may be some overlap in the questions. Anyone else want to make a comment before I say anything? Okay. It's a tithe. So is this directed to the individual or the community? That's the first question.
I'm
But you may
reading it
come
as the
away with different
individual.
different answers. Does it mean eating all of the tenth or a portion?
I would say a portion.
Okay. And but to do it in the presence of God, okay. So you have to haul it off to um, the designated house of worship. There are several that will be formed in Canaan. That was discussed uh, several months ago, and but if you live too far with this journey, you still have to do something. You still have to. You still have to take the money and you're supposed to convert all of these to money, is that it has a worth. Okay. But what do you have to do with it?
Spend it.
You have to, well, there's more to this. There's more to this. You have to take the money, convert to the money, and you have to wrap up the money and take it with you to the place. What is that wrapping up? Why do that?
It doesn't get dirty. You don't lose it.
Well, yes, it's possible for those. Any other? Hmm. So that you do not,
Wrap up the money.
it's taken away from you. You're doing it to put it aside. You're not going to touch that money.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You're going to bring it with you. And
See,
these are the standard rituals that we had, when do you sacrifice a bird, a cattle, things like that. Hmm. And when you're going you can partake in some of that too. Well, this is a very generous offering. Any other comments here? Let me read what, well, rather than me, I know Marianne has it in the book on page 1439. Would you read the commentary from 22 and 23
Okay.
and 24?
Okay, starting with 22. 10th part, the tithe. The English word derives from the Old English theogothen, meaning tenth, see commentary below. Of all the yield, commentators differed on the extent of the command. Some took verse 22 to state that all-inclusive principle. Others saw it limited by verse, and therefore applicable only to new grain, wine, and oil. 23, and the firstlings, they are not subject to tithing, but are to be eaten at the sanctuary. What'd you say? I'm sorry, Marty. 23, 24?
And 24.
24, because the Lord has blessed you with abundant crops.
Okay. So basically, you're going to be doing it at a temple. Well, they didn't have a temple there, but what did they call it at that time? It was the Mishkan. Okay. There was going back to Exodus, how you to construct a place where you would worship God. It's not the tent of meeting, but it's the where Moses meets with God. It's the forerunner of the temple. This was the portable house. They had to take it apart. They had to put it together a certain way. And all of that is discussed in back way back in Genesis. This goes back several years now. So if indeed you had to make this journey, you're doing it in the presence of God. So you have spent your money rather than bringing it for a sacrifice and eating it, you're eating a certain portion of it. You are bringing the money to purchase the animals or the other the wine or other intoxicants. Uh, you're you're purchasing those and then going to do the take it to the temple to give thanks. So you can have a portion, the priest is going to have a portion, the and the rest is going to be burnt as the offering to God. So so when they say that, having a great time, you're in the presence of God, okay? And you're rejoicing because you had a very successful crop. Your herds were successful, okay? Things like that. Any other comments? What about intoxicants? You want to read
Drugs, drink.
26? Read 26 first.
26,
Yeah.
other intoxicants. Once the word
Whence? whence the word
Word.
shikar,
sugar,
or
drunk.
drunk.
Drinking alcohol in moderation was approved, but incontinence was strongly condemned.
Mm-hmm.
Thus Isaiah
Castigates
castigates those who chase liquor from early in the morning.
from early in the morning. That's the end of it. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but the point is that it didn't mean partying. Okay, it was consuming it uh, in moderation. In other words, you're not supposed to get shicker, drunk. That's the incontinence was strongly condemned. So in moderation. Any other comments about that? Well, we have a little more time. Why don't we do verse 27 uh, all the way to the end of 29? It's a toss-up. All three of you had a chance to read, so I'll give you a chance to whoever would like to read. Michael, if you're
Trying
reading,
to find it. Oh,
Michael, you're muted. I know you were trying to read it. It looked like you were trying to read
Yeah,
it.
thank
Okay.
you. But do not neglect the Levite in your community, for he has no hereditary portion as you have. Every third year you shall bring out the full type of your yield of that year, but leave it within your settlements. Then the Levite who has no hereditary portion as you have, as you have, and the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow in your settlements shall come and eat their fill, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all that enter.
All the enterprises you undertake. Right.
Yes, holy, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any,
Thank you.
so this has a purpose. It's not just going to have a good party. There are certain reins on the people. Not to get drunk is one, but to be sure that that the people involved, you're going to be giving to portion some of it to the Levites because they don't do any of the farming and ranching, if you will. They don't do any of these other things. Their sole responsibility is 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 taking care of and keeping pure all the artifacts in the Mishkan, keeping it clean and getting rid of garbage, cleaning up after sacrifices. That's their purpose. That's what they're doing all the time. So they require other people. Think of it like your brain. You need all the other parts of your body to feed the brain, if you think about it. Okay? No pun intended. But the heart is pumping blood to the brain, giving to the brain. The GI tract is consuming food so that the brain can have the nourishment it needs, and your kidneys are there, your liver are there to get rid of the impurities. Okay, so that the brain can continue to function to keep it, chemically clean. So if you look at it in terms we can touch, this is what we're talking about. That the Levites their responsibility was very important. They had to keep themselves pure all the time. They had a much more difficult task of keeping pure. Other people had to work with all these other things. And you know, they, they couldn't keep themselves clean 100% of the time. I mean, there's certain jobs that we know that you can't. You have to wait until you get home to shower and do everything else. So it's a that's why the Levites were brought the food. We discussed that before. And but here, it very importantly to think in terms of the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, to always keep them in mind because they may not be able to fend for themselves. Think of the orphan thing. Always keep that in mind. And a lot of charities are based on that concept. So, um, any other things come to mind?
I just have a question.
Sure.
The Levites, aren't they the priests in the temple that sacrifice the animals?
Yes, they are the ones that do that when it's for a sacrifice. Yes,
Right, right.
yes.
Thank you.
But it in a way, we're asked to do this so that we remember that all of the things that we are doing, all of the things we are eating, growing, manufacturing, are really part of that big gift from God. And not to forget that. And that even if you can't bring everything with you to do the sacrifices, you still had to sell them to get the money, wrap it up so that you could then purchase the items again to make the sacrifices. And part of it, and it's interesting that a sacrifice is sacred. So when you're doing it for the poor, the needy, the homeless, the widow, the orphan, and you're doing things for them, that's also considered sacred.
I think the things that they're mentioning here are beyond that person's control,
Yes,
that it happens to them.
that's right.
They weren't instrumental in making any of these things
That's right.
occur.
But
It's like an act of compassion.
but compassion then is sacred.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing that, when you're giving to others. So maybe that's it's not part of what's written here. I'm certainly expounding on what's written, but maybe we're supposed to think of some of these other things that because of the way it's written. And then next week, well, we have next week we do not meet, but the week after that, we will begin with Deuteronomy 15, verse 1, and it's going to talk about a whole bunch of other more legalistic types of things. But I want you to think in terms of what we just discussed. That a lot of this is to keep us thinking about what else we do that's holy, not just in the kashrut, not just in other aspects of keeping clean pure, and the concept of pure, but how all of these things are intermingled that we're going to be reading next week, because it's going to come back to law, more legal aspects of this. But they're all tied together. They're all in the same, if you were reading on a weekly basis, all of this would have been covered in 1 week, in one weekly parsha. But there's a reason why it's all tied together, and we've touched on some of it. So giving to others is also considered sacred, holy.
Holy. Everything we do is holy. Everything. Other than what we know is unholy, what it would be common sense, it would be unholy. But everything that we do, everything would be, I think, considered holy.
Yes.
And you get into the law, that is holy. That is also holy.
Yes.
And things that are against the law would be unholy.
Right. So this is something that I want everyone to keep thinking, so that when we start the discussion, the more legal aspect of things, you'll see how it dovetails into all of these other discussions that we've been having. Okay. So Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat shalom.
and
Shabbat
be
shalom.
healthy in the new year, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.